what they call an open rabbet. This side's not very good, but the other side's worse, so that it starts fresh.
Yeah, it looks good.
And a 1 and a 2. When it goes in, of course, the screw heats up from the friction and it forces that tar into the fibers of the wood under pressure. You can imagine this plank, if it was this wide, what would it do back there? Catch just the top edge of this rabbet. See the rabbet here? It goes down like that. Inward.
What is today? November 19th?
I think so.
So can you run us through what's been going on? We haven't been here for a few weeks, let's say.
I guess. I don't remember.
Six.
Has it been that long?
I think it's September 27th.
Heavens. Okay. Well, as you know, we finished the mast step last time. It's in. You can't see it anymore. We've been doing a lot of tar filling and so forth. And then up here, we did these frame repairs. These frames were all floating and the lower ends were deteriorated. So what we did is we cut deep notches into the 4-foot to accept the new frame ends. A little dubbing left on that one. And then on these two, we put in short pieces that are bolted to the longitudinal, but we ran about a 4-foot long sister frame all the way up, well up into the top sides beyond the upper longitudinal to maintain that strength. And again, they're all notched in. And we had to re-bolt this bronze wing in. That required a couple spacers. We're putting, just a handful of small bolts this way to tie the sister frame to the repaired frame.
What have you learned about the boat up in here? What do you think of the building techniques, the design, anything like that comes to mind?
Well, it's a good design. Laurent Giles, it was built fairly well, except for that one very mysterious thing where these floor timbers were never bolted in, I don't think, from the day it was built. And that caused a lot of this problem up here because with the forces that are on the bow when plunging into a head sea, of course the planks are going to be pushed upwards. And when you do that, everything's going to slowly over the years start marching upwards. And a lot of these frames were over ½ inch out of their sockets. And of course the planks were quite a bit away from the rabbet. And these little floor timbers were floating, and they were anywhere from 1/4 to nearly ½ inch above the 4-foot. So everything was being pushed upwards. The repairs that were done back in the East Coast sometime, adding these bronze wings helped a lot, but still nobody ever addressed the problem of these 5 or 6 floors never having been attached to the boat. It's very strange.
Do you think the bronze wings were original, or those straps were added later?
I think they were added later, and the only reason I say that is because what I don't like about them is they use very large bolts, 3/8 bolts, in these small frames. And so what strength they gained with the bolts, they lost in the frame. It's backed up by bronze, but they could have been 5/16. They're just a little big. So, aside from that, we've tightened it up now. I mean, it's not going anywhere now. And of course, this plank runs all the way to the stern post. So the 4-foot is really well attached to the bilge and the rest of the boat.
Okay, so any more sister frames to do? Or basically, as we move up now?
Well, experience has shown we're going to find a few more, but the real problem below the waterline, because we'll now be going above the waterline, has been throughout this whole area where there's a lot of stress when you're sailing, especially racing, going to weather. The forestay is pulling up on the bow, and of course you're pounding into the waves, and all of those forces work together to cause lots of leaking and lots of various repairs over the years. Rarely do you have just a planking job.
Yeah.
You start taking planks off and you find stuff that either through time or older repairs and so forth are just not right. And you got to take care of it while the planks are off. You can't put planks on cheese, you know. So, and that's what we've accomplished. So I'm happy with it now. It's going to be very strong.
You said you wanted to make her younger. Are we making her younger?
Oh yeah. Well, and we also improved some things too as we went. You know, the long planks, bolting the floors, a vast improvement, and some of the stuff we've done, like adding this little floor, once and for all, has anchored this bulkhead, which is a fairly important bulkhead because of its location, to the 4-foot and the rest of the hull fabric.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about this part of the boat.
Okay. This timber here that runs from here all the way up to the transom is called the horn timber. And of course it's important that it be in good shape. If you remember not a year ago, but last spring when we took a few planks off the boat, I took some out of this area because there was some burn and I was worried about the horn timber. And that's where it is right there. Okay, so you can see the rabbet here is in not very good shape, and that will leak. Down here, the rabbet diminishes and goes away to what they call an open rabbet. This side's not very good, but the other side's worse. You can see how this, which was probably a repair from years ago, I do believe, kind of just diminishes to a feather, and then the frames aren't correct sitting in the rabbet. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the lower ends of these frames back because they're funky anyway. And we're going to install a cheek, probably 4 feet long. It goes from up here all the way down to here somewhere to develop our own rabbet, about 1.5 inches deep. And the cheek will be through bolted both sides and epoxied to this so that we will create a very large rabbet and get rid of all this monkey business here with the missing pieces and just, it's just not right. So there's about a week's work there. Cut the frames back, don't worry about them. They're not socketed in good anymore, so.
These frames here where they're kind of just
Floating.
junk.
Yeah, they're floating. This one here, I'm not sure what went on. It's similar on the other side. Looks like there was a notch sometime in the past. But if you run a batten down, there's quite a gap in here, maybe a 1/2 inch or more between this frame and this rabbet. So we'll probably cut this back and then run a laminate down into the socket, same on the other side, to get that rabbet back to where it's supposed to be. Also, this here was keeping the plank way out from the actual deadwood. So there was much material had collected in there. And same was true down here. We dubbed this back so that the planks lay nice and flat in this rabbet. You just have to do that all the way up to there, and then from there up it looks pretty good.
This is similar to what was going on with the 4-foot. I mean, it's similar, it was just not in good shape, it was kind of falling apart.
Yeah, and it's not really rotten, it's just tired from being old, and you know, it's time to fix it. And in so doing, we'll make a nicer rabbet here and regain a lot of strength. Well, the shaft log looks okay, but it's got, you know, some corrosion on it. And since we don't know its history, we'll just go ahead and pull it out, clean it up, put in some new packing, and rebed it so that it starts fresh.
It looks kind of corroded.
Yeah, it's just years of, you know, build up of stuff on there, and then
That's where the shaft goes through.
And that's typical.
Right.
You know, that's in fact it's better than a lot of them I've seen. But everything else from here on is just basically planking and sister frames as we need them.
Okay.
Now we're going to go up to here. I think the other side would be a better look. We're going to go up to here with our planking. This is number 8. We're going to go number 9 number 10 once this rabbet is repaired. And that's where we're going to stop in the build. And then we'll set up our scaffolding and go up to the deck and start planking down. So the shutter plank will probably be either this one or that, more likely this one.
And just remind us what the shutter plank is?
Well, shutter plank's the last plank to go in. And the reason it's usually located in this area is because it's what's called the flat, because there's hardly any shape to these frames. The plank really doesn't have much twist or bend to it, relatively speaking. And so it's an easier plank to fit. You wouldn't want, for instance, this one to be the shutter plank. It'd be a long time fitting that plank. So that's part of the reason it's here. The other reasons is because you can use the stands to clamp the plank in and push it in for its final fit. And since there's no real carving to do, you don't have to worry about working into a blind corner there where you can't see what you're doing. Okay.
There we go, that sounds clear.
Okay, so today we're going to install the number 8 course on the starboard side. And up until now, all of our planking has been full length. And we just simply run out of material long enough. So that the longest plank is now something like 25 feet. And this is the first course, which will contain a butt. Okay, well, it's where the planks are butted together. And we have a butt block, which has 4 bolts in it, 1/4-inch bronze carriage bolts. It has a caulking bevel in it. And basically, when you put in butt blocks, you want to try to put them in an area of the hull where there's very little bend or twist so that they're not under any stress. As you can see, this is a pretty easy run here. So our next butt block on the next plank up will be back here. So they're many frames apart, and we have the advantage of all of these being full length, so we have no butts until here. So now we can start moving them around wherever we want, using the normal minimum of 2 frame bays and 3 planks, or 3 frame bays and 2 planks as a guideline. We usually go more than that. Part of the problem we have had is because of the engine and a lot of other stuff, we weren't able to see what we were doing. So you have to, if you can reach in there and feel, that's fine. So a lot of times when you want to see how a plank's fitting, we take a mirror and a light, and we shine it in there, and you see the seam.
Yeah.
Does that show up?
Yeah.
And that's about the only way you can do it when you have all this furniture and machinery in the way. So that's kind of a slow process. There are areas like here where you can see from up inside the boat.
To see how well it's fitting.
Yeah, and you
Laying on
can
the frame.
feel too. And another way of determining a good fit is you take a real, where's that putty knife, John? Thanks. Take a real thin putty knife, it's not even a 1/16 of an inch thick, and you feel inside your seam. It should go in about, okay? It goes in a ways and then you can't go any further.
Right.
So it goes in about as far as your caulking bevel. This is only not even a 1/16 thick. So if you can't get this putty knife through there, you've got a good fit. This is a little Stanley block plane, one of my favorites. We're putting in the caulking bevel in starboard number 9 forward piece. And generally you can run this at a slight angle, and you run it all the way until you get the proper bevel in there. And it doesn't take long on a small plank like this. You come down the front, and we're almost done. A few more passes. Because now, as soon as this is done, we're going to put this plank back up.
Oh, that one?
Actually, you know what? We're not going to put this up. We're going to install that one
Right.
next, and then. Okay, there's a 2, there's a 1, and a 1 and a 2. Well,
Some numbers there. You have a 2, for example. What does that represent?
well, you're always working in 16ths. So this would be 1/16. That would be 2/16 or an 1/8. So rather than write 1/8, you just write the number 2. or 3 or whatever. And that's used on telling you how much material to remove, both on the caulking bevel and on your out gauge or in gauge. And this one here, for instance, is a pretty steady 2 all the way.
And 2 is the standard.
Yeah, it's about what you want. You want to, on a boat this size, plank this thick, you want about 1/8 inch to 3/16 caulking bevel. You want to keep them small because they only get bigger with age. And small amounts of anything, cotton and so forth, will serve a lot better than big seams with banging lots of cotton in, as it doesn't work, because you're not supposed to do that anyway. You're supposed to run half a strand maybe on a boat like this, so that the cotton isn't really keeping the water out. The cotton's main function is to tighten the boat up. In other words, when the boat begins to swell, the cotton cuts into these plank edges and goes, so when the boat swells up, then everything gets under tension and it makes the boat very stiff. That's why you want to keep everything small in terms of the caulking bevel and the amount of cotton you put in.
Right, now after the top goes, painted all over, the cotton gets painted over.
Right. You paint the seams with bottom paint, and then the next day when it's dry, you put your cotton in. It's dry, but it's still soft. You put the cotton in, and that same day, you take thinned bottom paint with a little custom brush, and you soak the cotton all the way through. That way, when your seam compound goes in this case tar below the waterline, when that plank begins to swell, that bottom paint is acting like a soft glue and will fill any microscopic voids that water could possibly get through. But of course, in the end, when it's all said and done, what really keeps the water out is good fits on the planks.
What do we got going here?
Well, below the waterline, we like to put tar in certain areas. What are you trying to do? Well, when you put a screw in, or a bolt, screws mainly, we coat the threads with tar, and that lubricates the screw, because tar is just thick oil. And then when it goes in, of course, the screw heats up from the friction, and it forces that tar into the fibers of the wood under pressure. You basically double the life of the screw if you do that. We know this from many years ago. Had an actual experience with it. But also on the frames, where there's an indent from a bolt or something, or like on these older frames, where there's areas of damage.
I'm gonna paint these before I tar.
Yeah, we'll paint these first. Areas like this, we pack tar in there. That way any bilge water that gets in there, hopefully won't have any, we're isolating the screws even further from the bilge water. Because if you don't have water in your bilge, the fasteners will last indefinitely longer. And
What do we got here? The shear lines?
well, this is our plank lines from the original planking.
Oh, that little line, okay.
Yeah, that way you mark it on the frame like that so you can see it. If it was marked on this face, of course, then you're high, you wouldn't know where it was. And so we just finished planing the top edge down to that line. And we leave the last 4 or 5 feet alone until that plank is in and seated where it's going to live. Then we run a batten along the top edge to get a nice flow in the 2 planks. That's something that's...
Now, why is it so important to follow the old plank lines? Why not just go with planks that are even wider than the old ones? Why?
Well, you could up here, but when planks are this thin, and it's not thin by any stretch, but the wider a plank, the less dimensional stability it has. In other words, it can cup and warp. That's part of it. And another reason boats like this are planked narrow is because they're relatively thin compared to, say, a boat like Chocho-san, which is a very heavy plank boat. So those are just bigger planks. And that's a little bit more of an old-timey way. This is more of a modern, from the 40s and 50s on, sort of. they started doing this more and more. And part of it's a function of the shapes of the boats. You can imagine this plank, if it was this wide, what would it do back there? It would have to come out of something that thick to get all of that shape in it, so it'd be crazy. There's no reason to do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so the plank widths are a function of the thickness and the shape of the boat. Okay, so we're going to put one near the point here. That'll hold the point in. And always angle slightly towards the work. In other words, when we're putting planks coming down, we're going to be angling our screws slightly up to pull the plank into the next one. And that's why these screws are installed just a few degrees, not 10, but just a few degrees. So as they tighten, they not only pull the plank in, but they pull it down hard against the other plank. So we start here. So when we put this screw in at a slight angle, it's going to just catch that rabbet. And we oppose it with this one, of course. So that we can't really utilize the rabbet anymore until we get back into here. And then the frames, same thing. We always angle them instead of going into the center of the frame. Okay, so this screw here is going to catch just the bottom of the frame. So we want to go through the plank, through the frame, and into the forefoot with this bottom screw. Upper screw opposing that one. Now then we're out of the rabbet here, so that's the end of that. This is a small frame, gets shorter screws. Now these floor timbers, on the other side, how did we do that? I think I put 4 in. 3, that's good, that's all we need. Now when we go up on the next plank, we're gonna alternate that pattern. This one here, we're going to go in an angle. Hit their giant bolt just then.
Now it's pretty much just by eye, right? Just lining it up by eye.
Yeah, what you want is your screws to go in like this. So even if those screws were to strip out for some very mysterious reason, you still couldn't pull that plank out because they're opposing each other. And of course, in doing it this way too, we're avoiding the middle of the frame, so that you're making it almost impossible to split the frame. Well, like the bolts, the little bolts we put in, they go in last. They go in after everything's banged in and sucked down and everybody's happy, then the bolts can go in. Just so you don't want them pulling on that plank. And what we try to do is it's difficult because some of the old holes were really bad and the planks had been repaired so often that there was so many holes, we just skipped the old holes, abandoned them, and went with our own. Now this frame has a bronze strap behind it, so we have to go with the shorter screws, and it's a shorter, skinnier frame. Same thing, going at an angle. Remember how we were fighting that damn thing? It was, how could I forget? Okay, so we can get most of it with this, the basher.
Let's see the basher. It's the basher.
Tapered, and there's the instructions are right there. Okay. How'd that work out for you? See, it's got to come aft a little, but wait till we get the wedges in. Awesome, that's good.
Okay.
Now, Clint, John, go up to grab the plank where Clint is, and you got to go back 1/8 of an inch. So go, one shot at a time. Okay, go. One more. I think we're good. Okay, now let me have some screws, 2.5s. And we'll just start the damn thing before we start all that twisting nonsense. All right, we're almost there. Nice. Una más. Done. Okay. Go ahead and redo that one. It's moving down nicely. I think we got it. Okay. John, you labeled all the screw sizes.
Yes.
Okay. Just let's start back here. That's where the most force is. And we'll be instant plank. No, this will get 2 bolts. This one did before, but because there's a big bronze bracket there, we couldn't get bolts through there.
No, okay, so you're saying that you're gonna take out some of these screws and put in bolts, you're gonna drill new holes and put
New
in
holes, yeah.
New holes,
Yeah, see how there's no holes on this frame?
yeah,
We're gonna continue this pattern up.
of bolts.
Yeah, on our new sister frame. And by the way, this sister frame, you can't see the shim now, but the old frame was in like over 3/8. So when we put the new sister frame in it, it made a nicer curve. And so we shimmed the old one out, and
So that, on that big one, we're gonna get bolts.
yeah. And these are screws here because the engine beds are behind, so we couldn't get bolts anyway. Doesn't matter. You can see how it's pulling it in tight. Oh yeah. This can go. This can go. In fact, John, we can
Pull some of these wedges out.
wedges away from here back.
When were you last here? Was it 5 up or 5 planks up, Charlie, or was it 6?
I think we're on number 5.
What?
When you were here last time on the 26?
No, we were on like 7.
No.
Yeah,
7?
we're on 7. 7. Yeah, but you hadn't done any of that stuff up front. You'll see, we'll see. We'll go
6
back.
weeks ago, we're only on 7. Well, let's see. There was a Colorado vacation, which was a disaster, by the way.
Was it?
Oh yeah.
Well, who were you there to see?
Well, friends and relatives, but it was one of those. I'd been planning it for months and months, and so not until I realized that Clint and John were going to have to take a week off, I thought, well, I'll just stuff this little trip in right now. So the result, it was a whirlwind affair, and I could have used my time much more wisely. It was good to see friends and all that, but you know, when you're pressed for time, it's really not a vacation.
No, but there's never enough time either.
No.
You know, unless you like take 3 or 4 weeks off.
Yeah, if you're in Germany,
Yeah, if you're in Germany.
take 3 months a year off. What the hell? Why not?
We were talking a little about, like, yeah, what's the new goal for the schedule here? I know our viewers back home are wondering,
Oh.
how far along do we think we are now on the scale of 1 to 100, 100% being. So we're sailing, but we're putting her in the water.
40.
40%, wow.
Between 30 and 40. You know, it's like I say, we've done a lot of structural stuff down low, and these are the most time-consuming planks by far. This plank here took 2 days. This plank here, we've got less than 3 hours in it. You see, so when you start getting up into here, they start rolling pretty fast. And it's really all about all the, I don't want to call them ancillary, but other repairs that are holding things up.
So we're hoping, how much time are we all taking? Is everybody taking off during the holidays?
I'm,
Christmas? Yeah. Are you working on Christmas Day?
No, not Christmas Day.
well, we're gonna work every day, well, I don't know what day Christmas falls. I'm gonna
Couple
take,
of long weekends. Take off a couple of long.
no, I'm gonna take Thursday off to go up to Santa Barbara for Thanksgiving with Sean and Jen.
Right, Thursday.
Then
And Friday.
Friday, I'm gonna finish that Lincoln bow.
Okay.
You know Lincoln bows?
No?
I did that on Saturday. I had to make a bow, a windshield bow out of wood for the front of a 1941 Lincoln convertible.
Okay.
So I'll try to finish that up that weekend, this coming Thanksgiving weekend. And then we take, what day does Christmas fall on? Doesn't matter, I don't, you know, Christmas Eve.
I don't know. Do you have family in for
Yeah, you go over, you know, presents and give kids, you know,
We don't celebrate Christmas.
you know what I mean?
We celebrate Festivus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You guys are
Festivus
Jehovah's
on our
Witnesses, dude.
Do you?
You know what Festivus is?
Yeah, it's a
No.
big, huge sheer plank.
No, it's. Didn't you ever watch Seinfeld?
Festivus?
No.
For the
Festivus.
Bowl?
Oh, God.
You deprive your children of Christmas?
Well, my family, we just get naked and dance around bonfires. You know, big pot of,
Kumbaya.
just go over, have a little dinner, few gifts, Merry Christmas, a couple hugs, see ya, bye. Now, what we're gonna do here, Charlie, is a little thing called, oh yeah, that pulled in nice. Seating the plank. In other words, when you bend the plank around, there's friction in all sorts of directions. And one of them sometimes is on this edge. So, you want to make sure that the plank is hard against the frames. And so we seat it. With a big, heavy weighted mallet.
That's a big, heavy weight mallet.
Well, when describing,
So heavy.
when describing this, one has to be concise.
Hey, you have John. Why did you have him swim that big? Yeah.
Did we ever find that countersink?
Heavy weight
Aha.
mallet.
Well, when seating a plank, one must endeavor to exert sufficient force. Now, we get pencil, please.
And
Yeah.
then do it again.
Yeah. Now, see this old frame here, Charlie? Now, this is a good example of the frame is kind of a little shaky, and that's why this sister frame. So there's no use trying to really do much with it. So we're just going to put a single screw in it, just to keep it attached to the boat. And we'll leave these wedges in until the bolts are in. So that way the,
One of the things I don't think everybody realizes is now we're going to go all the way up. We weren't going to go all the way up. We were going to go to like number 20 or something.
you're right,
Or
21, which is up by the water line there, the
Right.
bootstrap. But with all this nonsense and what we've discovered up in there is,
How many planks is that in total now, all the way to the top?
27,
Oh, it's only set 6 more after that?
yeah,
Okay, so it's not
no.
terrible.
And our first thought was that the 20 and 21 area was a filler that fed the hull into the ground up bottom, but as it turns out, that filler is everywhere. So that changed the ball game. Plus finding what we did up here and this stuff opening up was,
Yeah, the cracks.
yeah, so that pretty much, it's a vertical scarp, which is very strange, and hopefully there's a butt block behind it. It doesn't matter, it's going. So, long planks coming up. Shear plank will probably, let's see, the boat's 48.
Were you curious if that was replaced or not?
I think it was. It looks good at the stern and it looks good at the bow. And I'm 100% sure, nearly so, that when they did the deck, they put a new shear plank.
Maybe we can we'll talk to Charles, see if he remembers.
Yeah, or somebody.
We're gonna see this next one go on, then I'm gonna take off,